Thank you. My name is Moya. I am with the Illinois Student Assistance Commission, and I'll let my co-presenters present themselves.
Hi, I'm Jill Hlavacek. And Director of Innovation and Learning.
Hi, I'm Striedl. I am also from Naperville District 203. I am a project manager for learning services.
All right, so we do have a full agenda, and the clicker was working earlier. So first, we're going to very briefly go over the legislative updates, and by we, I mean me. So I'm going to be going very briefly over this. We do have some supports available if you're interested in learning more of the background of PaCE, if PaCE is new to you. Then we're going to go over those PaCE resources and support, and then I'm going to hand it over to Joe and Sue so that they can present on some of the things that they do. A lot of the feedback that we get at ISAC is, or not feedback questions, it's overall like, what are other school districts doing? What are schools doing to implement PaCE, or overall just with helping students? So this is why the presentation, a big chunk of it just focuses on that. So then to get started with the legislative update, and I tend to look, just because webinar form, I tend to look at the screen a lot. So I'll try to make eye contact. First, to get us started with what is new in the world of PaCE is the Public Act 1020917. So this is a public act that builds upon the PWR Act. So the Power Act that we kept referencing this morning. It builds upon two items from the PWR Act, and one of them being PaCE, the second one being college and career pathway endorsements. ISAC were the ones leading the efforts with all things PaCE. I am going to briefly touch on college and career pathway endorsements, but overall, we are the ones leading the work with PaCE. So anything you hear on PaCE is going to be mostly from us. And then with the Public Act, this was something that was signed into law on May of 2022. And it became effective as of this year. It amends certain sections of the Illinois School Code for public schools overall, but then specifically there's different timelines for CPS, which I'm going to be highlighting in here. And if you all want, we can take about 1 minute so that we can just let people get settled in. Sorry about that. Yeah. Come on in. We're still on the first initial slide of the presentation.
I know, I was saying, it's a fire code.
If you guys, not that I want to promote this, but other classrooms might have additional chairs that we want to steal them, or we can stand in the back, sit in the middle. Don't jump over anyone if there's a fire. So with the Public Act, the first thing that we're going to be going over is, what does it do for education agencies? What does this new amendments to the PWR Act do for us? So the first thing is that no later than July 1st, 2023, so literally a couple months from now, we have to start the educational state agencies. We do have to make updates to the Illinois PaCE framework as it is. But in addition to making those updates, we are also extending it to lower grade levels. So right now, the framework as it is, it goes from 8th grade to the 12th grade. And this is the framework that all of the educational state agencies have adopted. So what we are doing now is we're extending it to lower grade levels. So we're in the process of doing that, but this has to happen no later than July 1st, 2023. And then with other things that educational agencies have to do is no later than July 1st, 2024, ISBA has to publish and maintain the current database. And this has to do more for college and career pathway endorsements of employer champions for work-based learning opportunities. With the adoption of PaCE, this has to be something for Chicago Public School. Like I said, they follow a different timeline than the rest of the state districts. So with Chicago Public Schools, they have to adopt and begin implementation of their PaCE framework no later than July 1st, 2024. NCPS has a little bit less flexibility because they do have to adopt the framework that the state agencies adopt. Everyone else in the state, outside of CPS, they do have a little bit more flexibility as to what they need to adopt. Because they are able to, as long as it is aligned with the state framework, they are eligible to adopt their own college and career framework. Thing with CPS, and this is going to be something that we're going to see with all school districts, regardless of being CPS or outside of CPS, they do have to make that framework posted on their website, make it posted somewhere prominent where students and parents can access this framework. Then no later than July 1st, 2025, the rest of the state, they have to, by July 1st, 2025, the rest of the state have to begin with implementation, but at least adopting their framework, and again, posting it in a prominent location at the district level. And in regards to college and career pathway endorsements, I did keep it on here just because there's a lot of items within the Illinois PaCE framework, which we call benchmarks, that align with what needs to happen at the college and career pathway endorsements. It was also part of the Public Act 1020917. So no later than they're going to have a timeline to start offering endorsement areas for college and career pathway endorsements. CPS, again, follows a different timeline than the rest of the state. But by every class level, there needs to be a new college and career pathway endorsement offered. For anyone outside of CPS, by the class of 2031, they have to have offered at least an endorsement in 3 different areas for this. Again, a lot of the work that's already happening within PaCE aligns nicely with the opportunities that need to be given to students in order for them to obtain a college and career pathway endorsement. So this is how the work aligns a little bit. We are, again, leading the work with ISAC, with PaCE, but college and career pathway endorsements, they intertwine. It's just there's other agencies who are in charge of this one. And I believe you guys are going to be touching a little bit about what Naperville is doing with college and career pathway endorsements. Now, with this being a new mandate for the districts, we do want to say and mention that there is the option of opting out. The school districts, they have to meet this criteria in order to opt out. The conversation that we're hearing at any time that we present, however, is that they don't really see a reason for opting out. They see the value in adopting a college and career pathway, college and career framework. So they don't really see the need for it, but the option is there. There is very specific criteria in order for you all to opt out if needed. A couple of them is being the school district's current system for college and career readiness. Maybe they already have something better in place. It could be based on the resources that are available. That is something that we're hearing out. And this is going to be in regards to college and career pathway endorsements, as well as adopting and implementing a PaCE framework. And very briefly, we're going to be touching on PaCE support and resources. The first one being PaCE Symposium. We are hosting the second PaCE Symposium. This is where you really get to learn from counselors and other partners about what are they doing, their efforts with PaCE. So that is going to be April 20th, 2023. We also have some flyers on the tables downstairs that has a QR code that takes you directly to our link. Registration has not opened yet for the symposium, but it will be opening soon. The best way to find information on all things PaCE is going to be on our website. But also taking that flyer using the QR code, it'll take you directly to the PaCE Symposium website. We have our PaCE support request form. This is something that's also going to be available on the website on isac.org/PaCE. And then we have all of our PaCE support options on there. This is going to include a PaCE overview. I really briefly went over the legislation that came up last year, but the PaCE overview talks about the background of PaCE even pre-mandate of the PaCE framework. We do have the option for PaCE framework development workshops. I mentioned that CPS has to adopt the Illinois PaCE framework as the agencies adopted, but the rest of the districts or high schools, they do have the option of customizing their own framework. ISAC has an option to facilitate those frameworks for you all. And then the implementation support meetings. This is once you have adopted a PaCE framework, how to get started with implementing. So we have those supports available. And then lastly, the PaCE implementation leader training. This is something that we put out. We put a couple of them out in the fall and a couple of them out in the springtime. But once we put that out, it is intended for individuals to attend and be able to be experts on PaCE coming out of there, so they're able to take it back to their team and kind of help guide them, not be the ones taking on the work, but just guide the team overall back at your schools or districts. Now I'll hand things over.
Right. Well, welcome. We're glad to see so many of you here today. For those of us who just arrived a little late, my name's Jill Hlavacek, and I am from Naperville School District 203. And Sue is also on our team, Sue Striedl, and I have actually been in this work for about 4 years now, right? We've been working with our counseling program and some of our colleagues for readiness. But we are a western suburb of Chicago. We are a unit school district, so there's 23 schools in our district, and of that mix, there's 5 junior highs and 2 comprehensive high schools. We have a little over 16,000 students, very much a college-going, high-performing, driven district. We are very proud that about 86% of our kids actually go right into a college setting after they leave us. But when we take that data out a little bit longer and we look at what are our kids doing after 6 years, and that drops for us to about 70% of our kids actually have a degree after 6 years post high school. So it does leave us some room for growth. Additionally, our superintendent and school board several years ago started some community engagement work where we really talked to our community, talked to our stakeholders, and really learned the commitment that our area has in educating the whole child, and really taking a look at what are we doing to not just get kids college ready and in, but what are we doing to get them college and career and life ready. So from that work, there were 2 strategic blueprints that 6 through 12 to help our students be ready for have a plan, to retool the plan when life happens. It also charged us with taking a look at our aligned to specific career cluster areas that would increase early college credit opportunities and the work-based learning and authentic experiences for students. And state legislation, as well as our CCR reporting that has now happened, thinking as a system, okay, how are we going to have all this data and systems in place to actually support the work that we want to have happen with students? So for us, we kind of attacked it in, I don't know if called buckets, but kind of 3 phases. And love to create an implementation plan. So for us, we actually structured the work with leaders both at the building and district level in these different areas. So we had the group that we're going to focus mostly on today that Sue and I have been working with, our comprehensive counseling group, their individual learning planning that we're doing for students. We also have teams working on pathway development, work-based learning, and early college credit. Just like when my social studies companion teacher at one point told me, why say it? Video.
We're just a phone call away.
Don't forget to register for class.
Relax. I'm going to make the most of these 4 years in school. I have a plan. Freshman year, I'm only going to take intro courses or easier classes. Just kind of like whatever I feel like. Definitely nothing. Most number of credits in and has the least number of classes before noon, which actually won't even make anyway, because I won't be going all that much. You won't be going to classes? Academics aren't necessarily going to be my focus, if you know what I mean. Other Americans. to almost graduate on time. Almost.
Well, as long as you graduate with a plan, that's all that matters.
But after graduation, I'm going to realize that the real world and trying to find a job where I can pay off tens of thousands of dollars in student debt is just way too scary. So I'm going to go into grad school. I'm going to hide out there for a couple of years. You guys, I am so excited.
Okay, so I know we're laughing, but how many times do we have students that think they have a plan that might be antiquated? So when we started working with our counseling team in year one, we found out there needed to be career clusters and pathways of study, that we needed to actually have some we were charged with developing standards, social emotional learning standards, and college and career readiness standards, and by to implement. So we slowed our work down just a little bit. You can see. So we took 2 years to fully develop the maps with research. So we learned to read, to iterate, and we are back to the table again with our counseling legislation updates, as well as what we've learned so far to kind of update our maps. So we were charged with really developing a comprehensive counseling program that was not just about the academic readiness and the social emotional skill building, but also really helped students understand what was that post-secondary plan going to be and how can I get prepared for it. We aligned, and you'll see this familiar with the PaCE and financial literacy. A lot of work on this slide. I don't expect you to read them, and I'm not going to read them to you. This is when we started the work. There's a lot of different leaders and stakeholders in the group. And when we say college, career, and life ready, that can have a different meaning to it. So we did take the time to stop and pause and say, when we say college, career, and life ready, in Naperville 203, what all this morning, how important it is for our kids to lead at the level of make it college and career readiness skill building when they're with us, how and experience, and then how do we make sure they are leading with wellness and life ready? I hit this one.
Yep, sounds good. So, so then part of that year one phase is that we went through and we really looked at what is our vision, what's our mission, what are our beliefs surrounding that. So with district level teams as well as boots on the ground, individuals who are working with our students, we looked at all of those pieces. So there's, I won't read all of this to you as well, but it's focused on having every student have the options and have the knowledge and skills so that they have those post-secondary options. And it may be, as was said in our previous session and the keynote, that every student is unique, but we want them to have that breadth of options that are available to them. So that is our hope that we do that. We also want all of our students to have the ability to set goals, to retool, to have those soft skills. All of those pieces are embedded within this vision and mission and beliefs that that are the framework and the foundation of our comprehensive counseling curriculum and all that we do in terms of trying to support our students to be college, career, life ready. So then from there, you know, as Jill mentioned, we were going to kind of go through each of these pieces. So after we had that grounding in the legislation, grounding in what our vision, our mission, and our beliefs were, then we began the process for our curriculum process. And if you've done any curriculum work within your school districts, we followed the model of a lot of curriculum work that's done by Heidi Hayes-Jacobs and some of her colleagues as well. And what we did first is, what are these learning standards? What are our goals? What do we want our students to know and be able to do? And with that, there were a few different areas that we looked at specifically. So Illinois PaCE, and then we looked at the ASCA mindsets and behaviors. A lot of those overlap with some of the PaCE, as well as with the Illinois SEL learning standards. And prior to this, just as a footnote, we had gone through as a district an entire process of creating SEL curriculum, EC 12 for all of our students within our unit district. So what we did in this instance is that there were times where we saw that some of the overlap that existed between the ASCA mindset and behaviors and Illinois SEL standards were some things that might have already been addressed or implemented through our comprehensive SEL curriculum as well. So as we looked at that, we crosswalked all of those pieces to say, okay, what do we need each of our students to know and be able to do at each of the grade levels? So then we took those standards, sometimes they weren't exactly standards, but we took that language and then we moved them towards skill statements. Because the counselors, our school counselors, were going to be the ones who were going to be implementing this for the majority of the time with support and partnership with our classroom teachers, we wanted to make sure that it was very user-friendly. A lot of our school counselors aren't trained as classroom teachers with instructional practices, so we wanted to make sure that this needs to be something that they can understand. And then, of course, through that process, we built consensus about what is those non-negotiables at each grade level, and we worked with our counseling team and our curriculum team, which was comprised of counselors at each of our buildings, along with our learning support coaches and some other key administrators as well. So we had that consensus, and then we created what is our counseling curriculum overview. So the different colors here are different areas. So I want to make sure I'm getting it correct. So blue is our social emotional learning, the ones that we felt were non-negotiable. We looked at that, as I mentioned before, in alignment with our existing SEL curriculum that was being implemented. The green here is our academic behaviors. So those are focusing on like organization and some of those other skills that those behaviors that lead to learning success. And then the final piece is that college and career exploration and preparation. So you see some of those pieces from PaCE that may show up more explicitly here. So we have that and we had that, and you can see how each of the columns show the different grade levels. And so then we spanned it so that everybody, including, and we made this public so that our parent community and our partners, business partners could also see this information of how that learning progresses from the 6th grade all the way up through 12th. As mentioned before, so here is a little snapshot of PaCE, and then we had the different buckets within there with this career exploration and development, financial literacy, post-secondary education exploration and preparation, those pieces from PaCE. These came from there. We created a simpler, I'm going to call it simpler, like snapshots is what we would call it, or a different type of overview, because the previous document has a lot of content. So what we did was we distilled what are the essential standards for each grade level. So this was like more of a 2-pager that we could hand to a parent, right? So these are the essential standards that or tasks that your students are going to be completing during, say, 6th grade. And then these are the units that they'll be engaging in through their 6th grade year. And then we have that for each, sorry, this was 6th grade, this is 10th, but you get my point. And so that was another way of communicating with all of our stakeholders, and as well as our students, of what to expect from one year to the next. So, and we looked at how do we want to deliver instruction, because there's different ways to go about it. And because our counselors are not classroom teachers and they have access to students in a very different way, we looked at how do we want to be flexible, but then also consistent as possible among our 2 high schools and our 5 middle schools. So there's moments during the curriculum where they provide whole group instruction. That whole group could be at the middle school, we have teams. It could be with that whole team one morning, and then they provide that instruction with whatever those targets are. It could be individual, and as we're going on, there are certain pieces that are individual as well. And then there's a self-paced portion, which got retooled a little bit as with the pandemic. But what it is there's something that's pushed out through our learning management system. A lot of times that's what happens, and then a student is able to self-pace themselves asynchronously through that content. Because sometimes it's just about information dissemination, and we just need to get them the information, and it doesn't always have to be us or someone presenting it, when that could be another way of doing it. And then outside of the school day, so we have at each of our levels, there's a certain level of experiences that we have as well. And we'll go into that a little bit as well. So sometimes that is during the school day, but outside of the school. And sometimes it is in the evening and then at the school. So it just,
And our council has gotten very savvy at like those self-paced lessons, for example. Able to have them complete.
yeah, and I think that's a great point because the more that we have gone on and we're continuing to revise our curriculum and improve it, which hopefully that's what we want, right, for us to do, is that we're finding that the more that we can allow our students to say, send a quick email to mom and dad about what we did today in our lesson, that we're looping that in a lot more so that the students are, as their kind of exit ticket for their activity or learning for the day, shooting an email to mom or dad or whoever their trusted adult is to say, hey, we took a career cluster survey and my results came out as XYZ, so that families are in the loop with that as well. Of our curriculum, so this is a link to all of our curriculum maps. And then, as we mentioned before, so the little icons on top give a quick overview of, like, for example, this grade level, and I can't remember which one we grabbed it from. But yes, it might be ninth grade. And so then you can see on here, there's a whole group, there's an experience they have, there's a self-paced lesson, and it continues on throughout the entire year. So what we did is, I know in some content areas, there's unit maps, and each unit map is its own. What we did is each grade level has one long map, just because we wanted, just if you're a sixth grade counselor, you just go to the one map and that's where you follow. And then in each of the units flows one under the other. And so they just scroll down as the year continues to look at that. And again, because our counselors aren't necessarily all trained as instruction, we wanted to move this all the way down to the lesson level, which is not something that is typically done with all curriculum or all curricular areas. But we wanted to try and make this as explicit as possible and as consistent as possible because this is new, and we wanted to make sure that the experience is consistent across all of our schools. So it is a lesson template, a very simple lesson template, and then we have everything linked in there within our map as well. So administrators can go there. Any stakeholders who are curious have access to some of this information. And then, of course, we did a lot to try and think through how do we want to implement this information. So a lot of our professional learning that we did with our counseling team, we tried to make hands-on because we took on the responsibility of providing some professional learning on instructional practices and doing different things to engage students so that when they were creating the lessons and working on this content, they were trying to think innovatively about how do we deliver what could sometimes be dry information to students, right? Like one of the lessons we do have talks about, defines different types of post-secondary education options, right? What's a community college? What's a two-year college? What's an associate's degree? Some of that can be dry. And so then working in there and thinking through how can we maybe make a hands-on activity that provides an analogy to these different options. And I know we have a lesson, but I can't remember off the top of my head what that analogy was, but there is a piece.
So we were strategic as the leaders of making sure that when we had that team together, we also lesson learned added instructional coaches to our curriculum team on purpose once we kind of discovered the needs of the group. And then I know Sue will probably say it later, but lesson learned for Jill, we had those 3 sets of standards. If I were to do it again,
So, and then we also, because we had a core curriculum team, we also needed to ensure that we had that same type of, extend that same type of professional learning and communication to our other school counselors who also would be tasked with implementing this curriculum, but necessarily weren't in the creation of creating those specific lessons. So we did a series of videos. This just is from trimester 1 from our very, very first implementation year. And so you can see that there's a little video that walks through grade 6, grade 7, grade 8, and then we went through the process and did the same thing for subsequent years. We talked about what are those essential standards, all of those pieces, so that it was there. And we have in our comprehensive counseling curriculum sites, we also have a whole section on professional learning where this is housed, and then it also links out to a lot of other professional.
Your page.
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
lots of helpful
Yes.
stuff there.
So it's all there for them so that it becomes a one-stop shop for our counseling team to support this implementation. So, I think we're good on time. Yeah. We have 3 lessons. I'll try and move through them a little bit quickly in case anybody has questions at the end, so we'll leave some time there. So at the top of these next 3 slides, there is the PaCE expectation. So for instance, 8th grade, by the end of 8th grade, a student should be supported to attend a career exploration day. So in this case, what we did after lots of years of planning, and finally we were able to do it because it was supposed to happen the first year in 2020, and 2020 did not look the way that we hoped, so we did not do it then. And then we finally were able to implement it for the first time this past fall. So Career Motivate, we hosted an event. We bused all of our 8th grade students to an outside site, Naperville Yard. We'll give them a little bit of free press here. And then we partnered with approximately 100 different businesses covering every single career cluster. And the task was that these businesses who were partnering with us would have a table and they would create some type of hands-on activity for our students to engage in to learn about that particular career pathway, trade, fill in the blank. And so we had a whole range of students there, and we had a whole section on trades. We also had our Naperville Police Department, our partner community college also brought individuals there, and I'm like not even thinking. It was just such a.
It was a good thing.
Yes.
It was very good. And honestly, it was that for because the business partners actually they said we are exhausted, but this was a great thing. And I will give a shout out. So definitely came from your meeting that
Yes.
yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
So if you haven't seen their videos and their work, please take a look at that.
Yeah, so you could see the students, we had 5 sections, we had 5 different sections, and they had a set amount of time in each section. So we also, I don't want to say forced, but in a way, encouraged through forcing students to visit each zone because we wanted students to explore every single area. Because sometimes you don't know and you think that you want to do something because mom and dad does it or the brother that you look up to or whomever does whatever career path, and you don't realize, oh, I didn't know X. And now that I know X, I think that might be something that I might want to do. And so that was something that was very intentional on our part. We also created a booklet, and there was pre-learning and post-learning through our counseling curriculum that happened with that. And then there was activity engagement while they were there as well. They had a booklet where there were certain questions that they were encouraged to ask and record notes. And then we had a reflection afterwards for students to see how maybe something surprised them or something that they learned. So that was a really great day. We're very, very proud of it and super excited for next year.
Jason's got a comment.
I want to just interject on this last point. This is the most important part. I was actually talking about this with someone in the room yesterday and a group of their school districts and pulling this up as an example. And this is also a point where we get some overlap between the PaCE framework and the college and career pathway endorsements, because the endorsements do require that students have 2 career exploration activities. And while rules are development for that one of those 2 will be allowable in 6th or 8th grade. Now, a career fair on its own, hey, go look at a bunch of tables, grab a rubber duck, that is not an acceptable activity. It is not forcing exactly what we just heard, to dive in and think about what is it in this pathway that I'm interested? What does it really look like? And so the killer feature of this, and I was lucky enough to be able to be there for part of that day, but the killer feature of this was the pre and post activities. And so I was an 8th grade teacher. I was a middle school principal for a million years. And like, yeah, I mean, there were some kids like each other and touching each other, right? It was a beautiful fall day. But by and large, the kids were like, they were in their worksheets are good, but like this was a workbook that really was fully functional. And so I just want to the pre and post, because that's really where, not where the time and effort went in terms of like the planning, but that's where the payoff came in for the kids. And so just a real shout out to you guys, but also a call out to everybody that like, in terms of what I know ISB is going to be looking for on the career pathway endorsement side, but also the overlap with the PaCE.
Yeah, and we spent actually I know you think this was heavy lifting too, but we spent a lot of time thinking through strategically how the pre would look, how this event would look, and how the post would look. And we retooled a lot of our 8th grade counseling curriculum, which all focuses on this post-secondary readiness and all of those other pieces that we were talking about, SEL, all of those things. We strategically thought through how does this line up, and we wanted it to be in the fall because shortly thereafter, they're beginning to select courses for high school. And so every single thing that came up after that, it was very aligned and very intentional so that, you know, we kept touching base on, hey, think about those things. And we also talked about high school activities and all of that involvement that they're going to start, that they maybe already started thinking about, or if they hadn't, that they would start thinking about, because all of this can help pave the way to the college career endorsements, or the college career endorsements and the career pathways and all of those other pieces. And then so that students know that there can be an intentionality to really selecting your high school courses, to selecting, you know, what activities you want to be involved in. And it could be that you're going to try some different things and figure out what you don't like, but it could also be, I already kind of have an idea and I'm going to now be like a little bit more focused instead of just doing what my best friend is doing and thinking through, hey, should I do this instead of this? Because really I'm starting to hone in on what I want to do.
I want to take back and we'll take your question. Sure. Like our entire, you know, that funny video about the was really a paradigm shift. I told you about a high performing district. We have kids chasing GPA, taking more AP classes than they need to be taking in areas that they don't have an interest or passion. So for us, that purposeful planning is a huge piece of not just the student, but the adults that help them. It's their mind shift as well. So that's part of this too.
So I'm not sure if my question fits in with where we're at now, but I'm just going to ask it. So I'm from a nonprofit organization in Lockport. So a lot of our school, or a lot of the students that we work with are Joliet, Bolingbrook, Plainfield, some from Naperville area. How are, whether it's Naperville or any of the other districts, using like community-based organizations to do stuff like this? Because we are actually in the process of setting up a career fair this summer. I think it's in August or something. I don't remember the exact date, but we're working on getting that set up in the Lockport area. But like, that's really great information that you just touched on about the pre and post work stuff that we can help do so that the kids are getting credit for this type of activity.
We had tons of nonprofits that were represented here.
Okay.
But I can also give you a couple other examples. I mean, Kids Matter is a nonprofit in our area. They actually came into our high school this fall and helped us do a resume boot camp. They brought professionals in. They're launching some courses with our College of DuPage this summer for students to take some pharmacy tech and some mental health coursework. So they're definitely in the work with us in just different kind of buckets.
Because we
could do a whole session on business partnerships.
I know. I'm sorry. Because I mean, we have our own curriculum that we follow and stuff like that. And so there's probably students that are in the districts that are part of our organization as well. So trying to find a way to make it work.
Okay, so then the next one, and we don't have to play this video, is another PaCE one from 11th grade. Thank you. I forget which order I did it in. So this is the student should know, application deadlines, test deadlines, all of those pieces. So in our junior year, we have something dubbed Junior Week. And so a part of this is a presentation and then it turns into self-paced. So they go through, there's a presentation that the counselors give. It talks about, it reiterates some of the things that they've previously learned, and then it goes into some of those other pieces in here, including post-secondary options, college exploration, standardized testing. That's also the year that SAT is required, April 12th this year for our juniors. We also have college career counselors at each of our high schools, which is fabulous. And that's our focus. And they worked collaboratively to create Compass, which is a whole planning document, timeline, all sorts of, it's basically a website, an interactive website, and students and their parents can just click through all of the pieces. And so they have that. And then there's a video that goes with it. And so they have those resources at their fingertips all the time. So they share out about it, and then they give all these resources, and then students and their parents or their trusted adult is able to plan and help them plan for what are those next steps. So that is the huge piece there. And then they go through that whole idea of finding match schools if you're for post-secondary, and that doesn't necessarily mean just a four-year institution when we're talking about match schools or any of those things. We emphasize, because our largest population actually goes to our partner community college. Yeah, that's our number one post-secondary is institution. And so we recognize that there are other pathways, and we have relationships with obviously CUSD in that regard as well. And then, okay. And then by the end of 10th grade, a student should be supported to review coursework, post-secondary plans in relation. And we mentioned this a little bit before when I was talking about 8th grade and that career motivate, and then after that course election. So then we of course revisit it. So one of the things that we do is we have all of our students create a 4-year plan as they go into high school. And we emphasize that, yes, it's a 4-year plan, and that might be daunting to some of you, but you don't want to get to your junior year and senior year and realize, oh, I missed a prerequisite of a course that I should have taken maybe my freshman and sophomore year. And so now I might not be able to take it junior or senior year whenever that course is now available. So we create a 4-year plan and have them go through that process for the reason of not shutting any doors, right? Our goal is to have as many doors open to them as possible and not realize at the nth hour, oops, missed this. So now that door is shut to me. And so that is our goal with all of this entire curriculum, is that we want students to have a breadth. When they look out, we want them to have a breadth of knowledge about all of their options, and then to be able to actively choose what is the right fit for them, maybe at that moment. And it might mean that they pivot and do something. Options, and I have not closed doors inadvertently because of my lack of knowledge or lack of know-how or lack of what, fill in the blank. And so that is our whole goal. And so then, then we went into year 3. Well, we got to move quicker, right? Yeah. So that 10th grade year is really important, especially if the student wants to earn that pathway endorsement. They need to make that decision of what pathway am I going to try and complete. This is a quote from Jobs for the Future. I love it because we quit asking kids, what do you want to be when you grow up, but really start having those conversations about what kind of future do you want? And do this, but feel free to type in path.is QR code, and this will actually take you to the very first on curriculum to get our students into our college and career readiness platform. And it's a cluster survey, and it gives you celebrities that you match with. So not to spoil it for everyone. Okay, so the last piece I'm going to go quick because I do have them, but the last piece, I don't mean to make this minor because to be honest, my life for the last several years. And career ready by 2023. To me, long time in CTE, this is awesome. Show success and readiness. So I am 100% embracing my
I'll call it, in place to help collect this information, right? Like, and there but there's like not lots of data that's not just like involved in mentorship, work-based learning hours. Yeah. So we actually, and I'm not RP and found a tool to help support us in our work. The counselor in 10th grade can actually see what they said about the career motivate in 8th grade, right? So the tool I put in school links, but for me, I want to go through like the implementation of whatever process or tool you have. For me, we started patients. So we implemented our individual. And so I set that bar. All right. Second year, we just I also created a time learning with all counselors. I held it tight with just counselors. I didn't expand to all staff, and I did that on purpose, or we did that on purpose. We had some wanted them ready for their face-to-face training they were going to get. Date by September 30th. I still. And then we also set a date when parents should be exposed to it, and when the course planning should also happen. It was helpful for everybody involved. This could not answer every question that might happen and support that boots on the ground work. So we took a counselor from every one of our how's our data collection going? Where are we seeing gaps? So for me, having champions in each building was very, very helpful. And we still use kind of those counselor leaders to this day. This with the curriculum and with our individual learning plan tool, we have our platform. 96% of all of our 6th through 12th grade students are actually completing and in the platform. 87% of our seniors, when I pulled this, on one college application, and we do a ton. All right, you can see we actually do all of our rec letter through the portal. For me, this was a huge celebration. We actually do our course planning, like and then we harvest it and put it into our schedules. But 95% of our kids at press time have done that. This one is one I watched. Pathway of interest. This is a PaCE indicator or a CCRI indicator. 77% right now of our 10th graders have set that. We are tracking experiences within this portal. So remember all that messy data? Kids track their work-based learning, their volunteer. We actually have their clubs and activities loaded in there. So all of those different experiences are also being tracked. And the next step for us is how do we continue to engage our 25,000 alums already engaged in this school with us. This is.
You don't have access to
I come
the,
back to it, but, yeah. Time once the PaCE goes, we actually took the PaCE document all the way down, but we did it ourselves because there wasn't the framework. So we're going to need to crosswalk our curriculum with the new framework. We are going to be putting our junior high course planning into our portal as well, and really expanding our work-based learning. Lessons learned. I've told you to really get clear on your why, and don't be afraid to keep repeating it over and over and over, because we heard Amy Lloyd this morning, about people saying kids are too young to take a career. Well, a language, what classes they're going to take, so they are picking. Let's help them make it. All right, that was fast talking. Do we want to
Also supports that CCPE work, that endorsement
Yeah.
piece as well. I know she mentioned the 77% have a career pathway, so we have multiple career pathways already embedded within our
Right.
curriculum and developed, and so that is a whole portion of our program, high school program planning guide. And we have 6 endorsement areas as well that they can get a diploma endorsement in. Yeah, as well. So this all kind of works together in tandem and is in line with that as well.
Questions, comments, concerns?
A quick question, work-based learning, when you're trying to have it in line with the PaCE framework, what, you're kind of still trying to figure out if job shadowing, is that considered an experience that can be counted towards the PaCE framework as far as those hours, 20 hours?
Shadowing, no. For
Okay.
work,
It's a clear exploration, yes, that's a
enriching experience, which they do need to have in
Okay.
order to get the endorsement. Work-based learning, it has to be at least, they have to get a credit or pay. And it has to be with a business partner that's
Yeah.
willing to work with your school and evaluate that student progress on those employability skills.
Okay.
So it's a little more authentic work setting. So you could do school enterprises that way. Learning within, so like our education pathway, where our students go out and student teach,
Yeah.
that counts as their hours. In my entrepreneurship pathway, when students have taken our second year of our incubator course, they've already launched their business and they're actually working with a professional mentor to run their business. Those hours actually count for them as well.
I just need to
So-
formalize.
There is a definition.
Yes,
There's a definition in the Illinois dictionary.
the pathway dictionary.
So wonky with the job shadowing. So I was trying to figure
I
out
know.
that.
so with the work-based learning, that's more for college and career pathway endorsements. In regards to the PaCE, there's a lot of flexibility. The mandate is for you to adopt and begin implementation. There's a lot of flexibility with how you implement it. So you do want to concentrate on the college and career readiness indicators and also college and career pathway endorsement.
Okay.
I'm gonna jump in on that and just in the next few months. And so schools are making their way through the agency, and those rules, all of the elements, and any of the formal presentations that on the college and career pathway endorsement is the pages on the left side. That is the most up-to-date information you can have, and it's all the definitions that are really the, what do I need to implement on the ground definition? That's what I would point you to that you want to use.
Okay.
I
To
live
make
on
sure
that
you're on
page. There's so
target.
many
Yep.
resources
Yep.
there.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else?
So you are, so given the last. For those of us, I have one unit district and I have 2 high school districts. And in trying to engage our elementary schools in this conversation, for the way. Regardless of some of the law, so.
And this is just like, I am a firm believer in one, kids will listen to other kids. So I would try and get, like, our robotics team is amazing. some of the technical skills and career development. I think that's a good conversation that we're having. I think also anytime that you can get those messages to parents, have events for parents about like, and tie it to how the student brain is learning nowadays and the job market that your fifth grader is going to work. Well, they're the ones helping to make those decisions, but if you don't have the administrators, I also think if we can do things to educate in those other industries, and I think
I would say also depending on what the transition is, when they do course selection for high school, I mean, that might be a place where you can help bridge between, you know, if you're talking about an elementary district and the high school district and things, because our Career Motivate, even though we're a unit district, did a lot to bridge between the two as well.
as we get jealous of just the high school districts, but then we also love our. Anybody else?
Okay, so it may sound like, I don't even know if this is a big question.
So, no, it'll be a good answer.
This is actually like something I've with the high schools that I work with, but also on a personal level, dealing to have experiences and possibly do pathways, but the problem is they don't have room in their schedule in order. Now would love to be able to go into a pathway for right now, but he doesn't in his schedule. How do you work around that?
Well, if I solve that problem, I will. Honestly, requirements are a big issue when you're to pursue their. I guess not. We're really trying to push. We're a traditional bell schedule, even so. We aren't even a block, but we are pushing and starting to look at: are there things that we can lean into? Things that would count towards graduation but free up time for them. So we have built a very robust blended and online program. We also have a very robust summer school program. So there are opportunities for kids to extend their learning and take some of those credit graduation check the box type of courses even in summer so they can free up some of their time during the school year. There's lots of models out there. I would encourage you to look at some of those competency pilot models. I've studied in this room that are doing that has helped with some of that.
And I think the question that I always ask is, well, what is keeping them from doing it?
Correct.
What are those obstacles? Because we know that graduation requirements, if you're just hitting graduation requirements, there's room in a kid's schedule, right? But they're filling it with other things. Why are they choosing those things? And I know some of that has to do with our post-secondary options, but I know that there might be other things. And so